The distress beacon cut through quantum space like a scream. Captain Elena Harris stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Meridian, watching the tactical display paint a picture of systematic slaughter. Coalition Station Triumph, a massive installation housing 17,000 souls from 6 different species, was dying. The Krael swarm had come in numbers that blotted out the stars. "Communications incoming," her officer announced. "Commander Valth of the Velnar Defense Fleet." The hologram materialized, showing a reptilian face twisted with desperation. Behind him, emergency lighting strobed red. "Human vessel, you must flee. The Krael cannot be stopped. We have lost 60% of our defensive grid." Elena stepped forward. "Commander, we're prepared to assist. We have weapons and you." Valth's throat sac inflated with what might have been bitter laughter. "Your species has been in space for barely a century. You have no warrior tradition. You explore. You trade. You talk." An explosion rocked his command center. "The Krael do not talk. They consume. Save yourselves." Elena glanced at her tactical officer, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, who gave her the smallest nod. "Commander Valth, we've already transmitted a priority signal to Earth. Help is coming." "There is no help." Valth's image flickered. "The nearest coalition battle group is 16 hours away. We have minutes, perhaps an hour if we're fortunate." His eyes met hers, and something like pity crossed his alien features. "Go. Tell the galaxy we fought well." The transmission died. Elena turned to her crew. The bridge of the Meridian held only 14 people, but every face showed the same cold determination. "Marcus, how long?" "Fleet acknowledgement received 4 minutes ago. Queen's Marines are already in drop pods. ETA 18 minutes. He pulled up the external feed. "Captain, the Krael are breaching the civilian quarters. On screen." The station's hull erupted in gouts of flame and debris. Cruel warriors, each the size of a ground car, crawled through the breaches like insects pouring from a disturbed nest. Their chitinous armor reflected no light, absorbing it into absolute blackness. Where they moved, death followed. "Take us in," Elena commanded. "Combat speed. Load all weapons." Her first officer, Commander Onika Adeyemi, raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, we're a diplomatic vessel. We have exactly 2 railguns and a point defense grid. Then we'd better make them count. The Marines need a landing zone, and those civilians need 18 more minutes of life." Elena strapped into her command chair. "Besides, Onika, when have humans ever let bad odds stop us?" A grim smile crossed Onika's face. "Never once, Captain." The Meridian dove toward the dying station. Inside Coalition Station Triumph, panic had evolved into something worse. Resignation. Commander Valve watched his tactical display with the numb acceptance of the doomed. The Kaural fought with perfect coordination, their hive-mind anticipating every defensive strategy within seconds of implementation. His people, the proud Velnar, had held the line for 700 years against pirates, raiders, and rival factions. But the Krael were different. They learned, they adapted, they never stopped. "Sir, the human ship is entering weapons range," his sensor operator reported, confusion evident in her voice. "Foolish," Valth muttered. But he watched anyway. The Meridian opened fire with both railguns, stitching magnetic accelerated rounds across the hull where Krael forces clustered thickest. The aliens scattered, then regrouped, already compensating. But in those 3 seconds of disruption, a Kavik family ran through the breach in the opposite direction, fleeing toward the interior safe zones. The human ship didn't stop. It positioned itself between the largest hull breach and the civilian sectors, using its own hull as a shield. Its point defense systems created a web of fire that forced the KL to slow their advance. "They're buying time," Valth's tactical officer said, his voice tinged with wonder. "But for what?" The answer came 6 minutes later. The first indication was a ripple in local space. Then, the quantum signature bloomed like a malignant flower, and 16 objects materialized in high orbit. They were angular, brutal things, designed for one purpose: insertion under fire. "What are those?" the sensor operator asked. Valth felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt in hours. "I believe," he said slowly, "those are the humans' idea of help." The drop pods hit atmosphere at speeds that should have incinerated them. Instead, they rode trails of superheated plasma down toward the station, making minute course corrections that spoke of living guidance systems inside. The Krael swarm recognized the threat and shifted resources. Bioplasma weapons on the hull swiveled upward, tracking the incoming pods. Too late. The pods didn't slow. They punched through the station's damaged hull like bullets through paper, each one choosing its impact point with surgical precision. They buried themselves in Krael-controlled corridors, sealed sections, and command nodes. For 2 full seconds, nothing happened. Then the pods opened. Sergeant Nicole Patterson hit the deck running. The moment her boots touched steel, her neural interface synced with her squad's combat network. 12 heartbeats, 12 green lights, 12 Marines ready to bring hell. The pod's walls blew outward in a shaped charge that sent Krael warriors tumbling, and First Squad emerged into chaos. "Contact front!" Corporal Jake Morrison lit up the darkness with his heavy plasma rifle. Krael warriors, caught in the confined corridor, died in bursts of superheated energy. Their armor might absorb ship weapons, but concentrated infantry plasma melted chitin like wax. Nicole moved forward, her rifle bucking against her shoulder. "Second team, left flank. Third team, secure the junction. Fourth, you're with me." We're pushing to the civilian sectors. The Krael adapted fast. Always did. They began using the ceiling and walls, their 6-limbed bodies perfect for 3-dimensional combat. But humans had trained for that. Marines above and below opened fire in coordinated patterns, creating kill zones that even hive-mind coordination couldn't navigate. "They're pulling back," Morrison reported. "No," Nicole corrected. "They're consolidating. Expect a push in 30 seconds. She pulled up the tactical map in her visor. 16 other squads had landed across the station. Green icons marked their positions. "Command, this is Reaper 1. We have the eastern residential block secured." Proceeding to link up with Demon Squad. Captain Elena's voice came through. "Acknowledged, Reaper 1. Be advised. The Krael are concentrating forces around the station's reactor core. They're trying to cause a meltdown." "Of course they are." Nicole switched channels. "All squads, priority target is the reactor level. We let them breach that, everyone dies. Divide and conquer people. Make them split their attention." The Marines moved through the station like a scalpel through flesh. Where coalition forces had tried to hold fixed positions, humans flowed. They ambushed. They flanked. They used the station's architecture against enemies that thought in 3 dimensions by thinking in 4, always one step ahead. Commander Valth watched from his command center as his tactical display transformed. The red tide of Krael advancement had stalled. In some sections it reversed. The human icons moved with purpose, never clustering, never static. When Krael forces concentrated, the humans scattered. When the Krael split up to hunt, the humans combined and crushed them. "How are they doing this?" his tactical officer breathed. "They fight like they're of one mind," Valth said. "But they're not. Look." He highlighted 3 human squads on opposite sides of the station. They're coordinating without central command. Each unit operates independently but toward a unified goal. It's like watching a swarm, but one made of individuals. A Thross engineer, her fur matted with fear sweat, looked up from her console. "Commander, the humans are using our communication channels. They're talking to our civilians, guiding them to safe zones." She paused. "They're speaking in our languages." Valth felt something cold settle in his gut. Not fear, respect. These humans had prepared for this. They'd learned coalition languages, studied their station layouts, trained for combat in environments they'd never seen. This wasn't a rescue mission thrown together in response to a distress call. This was a military operation. "Connect me to the human captain," he ordered. Elena's face appeared, and behind her, Valth could see the organized chaos of a warship at battle stations. "Commander Valth, how long have you been preparing for this?" Elena's expression didn't change. 3 years. Since the first Krael attack on the outer colonies, we knew they'd come deeper into Coalition space. We knew you'd need help, and we knew you wouldn't ask for it until it was almost too late. You're Marines, Valth said. They're not explorers. No, Elena agreed. They're not. Humanity has many faces, Commander. We explore because we're curious. We trade because we value prosperity. We talk because we believe in diplomacy. Her eyes hardened. But when talking fails, an alert flashed across Valth's screens. Captain, we have a problem. A massive quantum signature is forming at the system's edge. Elena's tactical officer spoke urgently in the background. She nodded and turned back to Valth. We see it. That's a Krael supercarrier. They're sending reinforcements. Then we've lost, Valth said flatly. Even with your Marines, we cannot stand against a capital ship. You're right, Elena said. You can't. She smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. But you won't be alone, Admiral. You're cleared for final approach. The quantum signature that bloomed behind the Krael supercarrier was 3 times its size. Space tore open, and through the wound came a fleet. Carriers, destroyers, cruisers, frigates, and at their center, a dreadnought that dwarfed every ship in the system. Its hull bore a simple emblem, Earth's blue marble, crossed with an olive branch and a sword. This is Admiral Richard Shaw of the Earth Defense Fleet, a new voice announced across all channels. Krael forces, you are in violation of Coalition-protected space. You have 30 seconds to begin retreat, or we will open fire. The Krael supercarrier did what the Krael always did. It ignored the warning and launched attack swarms. All ships, Admiral Shaw's voice remained calm. Weapons free. Show them what happens when you threaten our friends. The human fleet opened up with everything. Railgun rounds moving at fractional light speed. Missile swarms that adapted their flight paths in real time. Energy weapons that carved through Krael bioarmor like it wasn't there. And something new, something the Coalition had never seen. Quantum disruption torpedoes that played havoc with the Krael hive-mind communication. On the station, Sergeant Nicole Patterson felt the Krael warriors around her suddenly hesitate. Their coordination faltered. Hit them now, she ordered. While they're confused, the Marines pressed their advantage. Without the hive-mind's perfect synchronization, individual Krael were dangerous but predictable. Human squads tore through them, reclaiming corridor after corridor. The reactor core was secured. The civilian sectors were swept clean. The Krael, for the first time in the battle, were losing. Commander Valth stood in his command center, watching the impossible unfold. The human fleet moved with practiced precision, each ship supporting the others in a dance of destruction. The Krael supercarrier, which should have been able to overwhelm any Coalition force its size, was being systematically torn apart. They're not fighting to win, his tactical officer said suddenly. They're fighting to send a message. Valth understood. The humans could have destroyed the supercarrier in the opening salvo with weapons of that power. Instead, they were demonstrating capability, showing the cruel exactly what humanity could bring to bear. And by extension, showing the Coalition what their newest member species was truly capable of. The battle lasted another 40 minutes. When it ended, the Krael supercarrier was a debris field, and the swarm forces on the station were eliminated to the last warrior. Human Marines established security perimeters while Coalition medical teams tended to the wounded. The butcher's bill was heavy. 3,000 Coalition civilians and military personnel dead, but 14,000 lived. Without the humans, all would have perished. Captain Elena Harris materialized via hologram in Commander Valth's command center. Around her bridge crew was already coordinating relief supplies with Admiral Shaw's fleet. Commander, our medical teams are standing by to assist. We have field hospitals and trauma surgeons ready to deploy. Valth's throat sac contracted in his species' gesture of deep respect. Captain Harris, I owe you an apology, and my life. And the lives of everyone on this station. No apology necessary, Elena said. You were working with the information you had. Humans are explorers. We are traders. We do talk. She glanced at something off-screen. But we're also descended from persistence hunters who chased prey across continents until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're the species that looked at every other predator on our world and decided we wanted to be at the top. We built civilizations, then burned them down and built them again, learning from every failure. She leaned forward. The Krael think they're the ultimate predators because they have a hive mind and perfect coordination, but they've never faced a species that combines individual initiative with collective purpose. They've never fought an enemy that learns from every engagement and shares that knowledge across their entire military in real time. They've never encountered humans. Valve looked at the tactical display, at the human fleet settling into defensive positions around the station. This wasn't a rescue operation. No, Elena confirmed. This was a demonstration. For 3 years, we've been trying to convince the Coalition to take the Coil-Sour threat seriously, to mobilize, to prepare for a real war. She smiled without humor. Words weren't working. So we showed you what humans do when someone threatens our allies. Your allies, Valth repeated. We've treated you as junior partners, as inexperienced newcomers to galactic civilization. You have, Elena agreed. And that's fine. We were all those things. But we're also the species that went from atmospheric flight to moon landings in 66 years. From first computers to artificial intelligence in 70. We don't just adapt, Commander. We evolve. And we do it faster than any other species in the galaxy, 'cause we have to. Earth isn't a gentle world. It made us hard. Admiral Shaw's voice cut into the channel. Captain Harris, we're picking up quantum signatures. Multiple Krael supercarriers emerging at the system's edge. They're bringing the fleet. Instead of fear, Valth saw Elena's expression shift to something like satisfaction. Admiral, are all our pieces in position? Affirmative. Coalition vessels are standing by. The trap is set. Valth felt his blood chill. Trap? Elena turned to him. Commander, did you really think we risked our Marines and our fleet just to save one station? We're humans. We think bigger. She gestured to the tactical display, where 12 Krael supercarriers were entering the system. We needed the Krael to commit significant forces. We needed them to think they'd found a weak point. And we needed the Coalition to see what's coming. Across the system, space tore open in a dozen more locations. Coalition battle groups that should have been 16 hours away poured through quantum gates, human-designed transit points that had been secretly installed over the past year, Velnar dreadnoughts, Thros carrier groups, Kavik strike wings, and more human vessels, ships that had been waiting in quantum space for this exact moment. The Krael had brought 12 supercarriers. They faced a combined human coalition fleet of over 300 warships. This is Admiral Shaw to all coalition forces. Today, we stop running. Today, we stop losing. Today we show the Krael that this galaxy belongs to those who fight for it, not those who devour it. He paused. All ships, battle formation Delta. Let's teach these bugs what real coordination looks like. The fleets engaged. And the difference was immediately apparent. The Coalition forces, following human tactical doctrine, fought with a new aggression. They didn't just defend, they attacked, they flanked, they adapted. And with human quantum-linked battle networks coordinating the entire engagement, they moved like a single organism with 300 deadly appendages. Sergeant Nicole Patterson watched from the station as the battle unfolded in the void above. Her squad was helping Coalition engineers restore damaged systems, but her attention was on the light show outside. Every flash was a ship dying. Every explosion was the Krael learning that they'd finally met their match. Sarge, you think we'll win? Corporal Morrison asked. Nicole checked her rifle, ensuring it was ready for the next fight. Because there would be a next fight. And a fight after that. The Krael wouldn't stop until they were broken completely. But neither would humanity. We're humans, Morrison, she said. We invented the concept of total war. We turned our entire civilizations into war machines when we had to. We fought each other for thousands of years and learned every dirty trick in the book. She smiled. The Krael think they're scary because they're a hive mind. But we're scarier. We're billions of individuals who choose to work together. And when we decide something needs to die, it dies. The battle raged for 6 hours. How it could have slipped outside of our perimeters. When it ended, 11 Krael supercarriers were debris. The 12th fled into quantum space, carrying with it the message that humanity wanted sent. This galaxy was no longer prey territory. Captain Elena Harris stood on the bridge of the Meridian, watching the human and coalition fleets form up in victory formation. Commander Valth's face appeared on her screen, and for the first time since they'd met, his throat sac was fully extended in the Velmar gesture of joy. Captain, the Coalition Council wishes to speak with your Admiral Shaw. They want to discuss formal military alliance. I'm sure the Admiral would be happy to, Elena said, though I should warn you, humans have some unusual ideas about how alliances should work. We believe in shared command, shared intelligence, shared victory. After today, Valth said, I don't think anyone will argue with human military doctrine. He paused. Captain, may I ask you something? You said you'd been preparing for 3 years. You built quantum gates. You positioned fleets. You trained your Marines for station combat. All of this before the Coalition even acknowledged the KL were a real threat. Yes, Elena confirmed. Why? We weren't your allies then. We barely acknowledged you as equals. Elena was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of human history. Because that's what we do, Commander. We saw people in danger, and we prepared to help them. Not because we expected gratitude or alliances or political advantage, but because when we were young and primitive and killing each other over scraps of territory, we had a saying, I am my brother's keeper. It means we look out for each other. All of us. Even the ones who don't think they need looking after, she smiled. Besides, the Krael made it personal when they ate the crew of our first contact ship. Humans are very good at holding grudges. Valth's throat sac rippled with what might have been laughter. I'm very glad you're on our side, Captain. So are we, Commander. As the combined fleet began organizing relief operations and damage assessment, a priority message came through from Earth. Elena read it and felt a fierce pride swell in her chest. The message was simple. Just 4 words. Well done, Meridian. Welcome home. But attached to it was a deployment order. The war with the Krael was just beginning, and humanity was mobilizing everything it had. The Queen's Marines were being expanded from 16 battalions to 60. The fleet was laying down new dreadnoughts in Earth orbit, and most significantly, the Coalition Council had formally requested that Admiral Shaw take command of the joint military forces. The humans had arrived on the galactic stage as explorers and traders. They were leaving it as warriors. And the Krael who had terrorized the galaxy for 3 generations were about to learn what happened when you threatened a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain on a death world. The battle for Coalition Station Triumph was over. The real war was just beginning. And somewhere in the cold dark between stars, the Krael hive-mind was learning to feel something it had never experienced before. Fear. Because the humans had arrived, and when humans went to war, they didn't stop until the enemy was broken, or they were dead. There was no middle ground, no negotiation, no mercy for those who showed none. The galaxy was about to change forever. And standing at the threshold of that change were 17,000 grateful souls on a battered station, 68 human Marines who'd held the line, and 1 diplomatic captain who'd known exactly what message to send. Humanity wasn't just joining the galactic community, it was saving it. And in doing so, it was showing every species what it truly meant to be human, to fight impossible odds, to stand for those who couldn't stand for themselves, and to never, ever surrender. The Krael had started this war thinking they were the hunters. They were about to discover they'd become the prey.